He's already.
Good evening, everyone. Happy April Fool's Day. Hopefully no one got caught in an April Fool's joke, but... Oh, you did? We can tell stories later. This is the regular meeting, the Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School District, April 1st, and we'll start the meeting with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ask the superintendent for safety regs.
Sure. We have two exits located right over here. In case of emergency, if those are blocked, we can exit right through this door here. We'll take a left and follow the emergency exit signs.
All right, we have two sets of minutes for approval tonight. The first one is the public hearing budget minutes from March 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any questions, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then we have the regular meeting minutes also from March 4th, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. Any changes or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention? John. Motion carries. We have our warrants circulating the table. If everyone can be sure to sign those before you leave tonight. Is there a motion to sign the warrant?
Moved.
Second.
Mike? Tim? Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hey Marie, do we have any correspondence tonight? No correspondence? And with that brings us to Kirsten, who's fresh off her winning game tonight, so congratulations.
Yay.
First home game win.
Since the last meeting, everything has been continuing to go well at school. All the spring sports teams have been doing great as the seasons are starting. Earlier last month, the school had a semi-formal dance where the students got to have a fun night. It was a good turnout, and from what I heard, the students really enjoyed the dance. Another event that took place earlier in the month was the Skills USA Districts competition held here at Baycott. All the students did well, and there was a good number that placed high enough to go to the state competition. The steering committee for the class of 2024 is heavily preparing for their prom, graduation, and the class trip. Prom for the seniors is May 17th at the Southbridge Hotel and Conference Center. The class trip is May 29th at Six Flags, and our graduation is May 31st at the DCU Center. And the seniors are very excited for these events, and many of them are committing to colleges and finalizing our plans post-graduation. NHS also has received their new applications and will be reviewing applications and accepting new members for the induction that's on May 8th. And the Leader Club is also in the process of creating an eyeglass donation box, as well as starting a garden at the Overlook.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
This is the time of year it gets busy.
Yeah.
A lot of fun for you too, so. How about yourself? Have you made any decisions?
Yeah, I committed to the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
Excellent.
Good string, good luck string.
Thank you.
Games. All right, thanks, Kirsten. I don't see any old business on the agenda tonight, so we'll jump over to citizens participation. Anyone here for citizens participation? Seeing no one, we'll jump into new business. We have a couple presentations tonight. The first one is the Student Opportunity Act, SOA plan. Sure.
So through the chair, as I stated at the last meeting, our Student Opportunity Act is due today. So we'll submit it tomorrow, hopefully pending school committee approval on the plan. We put a lot of work into it. I have a presentation if we can go to the next slide. So what is an SOA, Student Opportunity Act plan? It's a 3-year district plan that describes how the district will utilize evidence-based programs to address the disparities identified by data and student learning opportunities and outcomes for the student groups that we serve. Consideration when looking at the district plan. The data provided is by the state, and we'll show the heat map. They took a lot of the guesswork out of it and showed us the heat map, or submitted heat maps to every district. By design, a district's SOA plan is specific to student groups, very specific evidence-based programs for addressing the disparity in those student groups. It's not an entire strategic plan that addresses all students on that. So it's not expected to reflect the district or the charter school's comprehensive plan. That's the strategic plan that we're kicking off this weekend. Data on anticipated budgets is also shown in there. It's not a new allocation of funds. It's now part of our operating budget. What portion of our operating budget is dedicated to addressing these disparities? So this is a heat map that I mentioned. So the data reveals there are disparities between our students with disabilities and their peers, as well as our English learners and their counterparts when compared to the general population. So what we gathered from this is specific gaps are in MCAS scores, absenteeism, right? So lower rates of proficiency or above in MCAS scores, higher absenteeism rates, and lower ninth grade passing rates for our students, English learner students, and our students with disabilities on those. So those are the target areas, and a heat map is basically your attention should be drawn to the bright red because that's the hottest in the areas that could need the most improvement on those. Thanks. So what did that tell us? It told us our focus and our theory, or formulated our focus and our theories of action. So we broke it down into 3 theories of actions to address the disparities in those. And it comes out to, if we provide additional support to our multilingual learners, they will experience increased connection to the learning community, academic achievement, and personal growth. The next theory of action is if we ensure that all students have equitable access to curriculum and we measure their achievement through reliable assessments, we can garner valid data from which to make decisions regarding growth and necessary interventions for those students. And lastly, if we leverage the talented staff that we have more effectively to provide increased access and engagement, students will experience fewer barriers to success and more intrinsic motivation to succeed. So what does that mean? So we have our theories, what is our goal, and then what are the specific action steps that we'll take. So in the theory of providing additional support to our multilingual learners so they can experience increased connection to learning community, academic achievement, and personal growth, our goal is to increase service contact hours and support structures for multilingual learners to increase their engagement in academic success. So the specific action steps are, 1, to move the ESL classroom into a larger, more functional space, better suited for group instruction. So we're looking at taking kind of a makeshift small office space and moving our students into a classroom where they have access to smart technology, and that's the newest smart technologies have, apps, for the lack of a better, that will address language learners, so include sheltered immersion and so forth on that. The next is identify a block of time to deliver ESL instruction in the academic week schedules. So right now, we miss a huge recommendation by the feds as well as the state to have specific English language access blocks of time where our EL students can go in and specifically address, learning the English language on that. So this group, and through this, we'll be looking at the weekly schedule and finding out, is there an area that we can do it? Right now, we're pulling out and trying to push in, but if we specifically address a block of time, and we can do that, it's going to give them a better chance of success. We'll look to explore the option of assigning a success coach or a team to multilingual learners on that. So we'll explore that option of what specifically our teachers need to address that. We'll determine what factors contribute to higher rate of chronic absenteeism within this subgroup. So through a series of speaking with the students as well as looking at the data, what's contributing to their absenteeism? Is it, the lack of grasp of the English language, and how can we better address that? Is there something specific culturally that we can address? on that. We'll implement the EDGE ESL curriculum with Fidelity, so that's the curriculum specific for our ESL. So are we instituting that with Fidelity across all our language learners, regardless of their level 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll explore the possibility of hiring a bilingual paraprofessional to work with the ESL instructor and in the classes with the ESL students exclusively. So right now we have an ESL instructor. We'll look at getting a bilingual para to support that instructor's activities in the classroom. So theory and action goal 2, you jumped ahead, you may go back one, please, Mr. Becker. So if we ensure that all students have equitable access to the curriculum and we measure their achievement through reliable assessments, we can garner valid data from which to make decisions regarding growth and necessary interventions. So the goal of this is to establish increased alignment between all academic course levels through curriculum mapping, common assessments, and data analysis. So what specific steps will we take? We'll create a curriculum maps focused on grade level standards at all grade levels. So we did the collection of all our curriculums, we pulled them together, so now we have a repository where all the curriculums are. And we'll unify those across all grade levels on those. We'll form data teams to assist with uploading common assessments, align with standards, and define the proficiency rates. So that's under the data, MCAS testing data specialists, pull the data together, form teams, which we've already started to work on forming the teams that will look at the data specific to the grade levels. Where can we provide more supports? Where are we falling down? Where are we successful, and how do we take that success and spread it around the other schools? We'll adopt a diagnostic platform to measure student progress. So this is where systems like iReady, IXL come into play. So if we have common assessments and we have reliable data across all levels, we can collect that data and it's uniform across. So it's not that I'm using this assessment and this teacher's using this assessment tool. It's apples and oranges, we can't compare them. So if we're all on the same for the common assessments and we can use that, that's great. And the iReady allows us for assessment when they come in the door to properly place those students. Are they honors, are they college, or where do they fall in that? So if we can properly place them on day one, that's half the battle right there. We'll adopt an online platform to house, monitor common assessments and data. So a system like Formative allows us to house all those common assessments in one place, but more importantly, whether it's a department-grown assessment, common assessment across all, or it's an assessment that we pull right out of Formative because it's ready-made, it will take all the data and analyze that in that one house for us, so we don't have to input the data. Now, if we have assessments that we're using, we can upload them in there, and it'll automatically take that data and give us the results on it, and we can analyze that. We can provide interventions to struggling students, so if we have the data, now we know where we can focus our interventions and what they need on that. And we can provide focused instructional coaching to our teaching staff, which we've already kicked off this year. Now, theory in action 3. If we leverage the talented staff that we have more effectively to provide increased access and engagement, students will experience fewer barriers to success and more intrinsic motivation to succeed. So the goal is to enhance our co-teaching model and universal design for learning practices. So UDL, you're going to hear the common theme throughout that. So what specifically are we going to do to achieve this? We're going to provide co-teaching training to the staff to expand or use the 6 effective co-teaching models. We're going to explore the ability to keep effective co-teaching partnerships consistent through scheduling practices, again, looking at the schedule. We're going to continue to provide UDL training and resources, and we're going to provide targeted feedback related to co-teaching and UDL practices across all of those. So, if you think of this, it's data, and more data on it, and providing the tools that our staff and our students need to be successful. So UDL system-wide access, or provides access to all students at their individual levels, from the lowest performer to the highest performing student on that. There's more that goes into the SOA that isn't in there specifically. So evidence-based and metrics. So in the actual submittal, some of the metrics we're using for absentee rate for our L students is to reduce the absentee rate by 3% over the next 3 years through initiatives focused on engagement, support, and community involvement. And for our L students, target improvement, increase the percentage of L students passing all courses in the 9th grade by 10% within those 3 years through the targeted academic support programs. And then for our students with disability, again, decrease chronic absentee rates among the students with disabilities by 5% over the next 3 years, and improve 9th grade passing rates for students with disability by 10% over the 3 years on those. So we have specifics in there that we target. And again, there's a whole component of budget and how much is the district spending of their operating budget on that. So again, it's not a grant that they're giving us funding. We're not seeking funding. We're not pulling the funding from anywhere else. The SOA money from the past 3 years was baked into the foundation budget. So we identify what portion of our operating budget is going into that. So for the evidence-based program, 1.1A, integrated services for the well-being of all students. A big part of this is providing our BRIGHT program. So it's targeted towards students who are experiencing social emotional learning issues. We have a room and staff dedicated to that. The funding over all 3 years totals $664,000 and some change. For that includes the BRIGHT teacher, the BRIGHT counselor, supplies and materials, as well as BRIGHT membership and training on that. For the employee evidence-based program, 1.2A, effective student support systems. This talks about our instructional coach, our UDL training, our UDL books, our Power School, our one-to-one initiative, our iReady, our formative programs that we're purchasing to make sure that all our students have equitable access. The funding for that is $637,000 for the next 3 years. That includes a breakdown of a portion of the coaching salary on that. So about 25% of our population are students with disability or L learners. So 25% of that coach's salary we attribute to the SOA. Behavioral interventionist, again, 25%, a portion of the salary. The one-to-one devices, again, about 25% of that, even though every student is, but these are specific to the students. On that online platform, so that's the iReady and the formative on that, and Power School, again, 25% of that goes to there. And then the last evidence-based program that we're using is the effective use of WIDA framework for our L students. So that's a portion of the L teacher salary, the new powers salary, attending LPAC meetings if the towns will let us into their LPACs. We don't have enough L students to form a parent advisory council on that, but if we can get into our sending towns LPACs and talk to them, as well as professional development for the WIDA training on that. Over the 3 years, that's a total of $475,000. So that's a L teacher salary, the L para salary, parent engagement, professional development, and instructional materials for our Ls. Threw a lot at you. Any questions?
Through the chair. I think it was back in on number 1 when you said that the students would be pulled out and would be making some specific time for them to visit that classroom that we're developing. Where would that time come from? We're going to add a period, or are they going to come from another core subject?
Sure, that's a great question. So we don't know right now, but that's part of the scheduling committee. We'll meet and look at our current schedule, how it's set up, what courses we're offering. You know, is there any efficiency to having that we could find time to create another block or specific? So it's a struggle most vocational schools have because of the related theory and the shop time, that there aren't a lot of areas for electives. Even though English language acquisition isn't an elective, it's not a mandate, but the recommendations, and there's strong recommendations from the DOJ, are, you know, a certain amount of time for level 1s. We're fortunate that we don't have level 1s right now, but again, if there's equity and access to all, we could be getting level 1 students. So right now, they're pulling out, and that could be talking to, we shouldn't be pulling out of core academics, you know, but it's talking to, you know, teachers where we can do this. It's also co-teaching, so we're pushing in, we're having the EL teacher attend those math classes, the English classes, history classes, to provide the services, the required services to our students. So where can we find that efficiency? You know, and I don't want to throw anything out to, you know, send fears out, like, they're thinking about pulling this. It's a really collaborative, and that's where all the stakeholders come in. So the scheduling committee has a great cross-section of teachers across the entire, about how many people do you?
Or 8.
8 people on that, so vocational and academic teachers on. So that's part of this, is looking at that and where can we do it and what decisions, you know, can be made after we get all the feedback. Did I answer?
Well, yeah, through the chair, no, I understand the challenge that provides without adding that extra block. It has to come from somewhere. So what used to happen back in the old days is they would pull out of the vocational side. And to me, it was a mistake then. It would be a mistake if it happened again, because the students who were struggling that much, the ones that were trying to bring up to that hit that benchmark, those are the ones who are likely going straight into the trade. They're here for that specific purpose because they probably struggled right along academically. So I think to pull them out of the vocational area to sort of make up for that deficit is probably a problem. You'd be better off, better suited pulling students who are high achievers out of the vocational side, because they're always going to be able to make up that ground and be proficient in vocational areas. So I'm not saying or even alluding that that's where you're going with this, but that's just my experience, and it's usually they're usually losing out a lot because the students who remain in the shop and who remain in that related theory room are going leaps and bounds above them because they're missing that time.
Good, no, through the chair, it responds, exactly, we look at where they're succeeding, and if they're not succeeding, you know, or if they're not succeeding and it's really bad, they need that intervention. So maybe if we pull them out and give them that specific language acquisition and help them through that, that could be it. If they're doing really well, maybe they're 4. So it's in talking to the vocational instructors, if we were ever considering to pull them out of a, you know, shop, either related or the shop part of it, you know, but you know, anything's on the table to throw out and discuss the pros and cons and look at the, you know, are there more pros? Great, we're going with it. If there's more cons, then we're not going to touch that block of time on it. But there's no magic answer to this. It's, you know, the magic answer is if we could find that specific block of time, then we could say, that's where you go. I think Dean wants to add.
Yeah, just through the chair, if I may, you know, unlike a comprehensive high school, we have 180 days to mask out a schedule. You have 90 days to really give all the students their core content area. I've sat through several scheduling committee review panels. We all come up with the same thing. There's just no time left in a schedule unless you extend your day. So being ultra creative, and I really applaud and appreciate the teachers coming together and starting to think outside the box and looking at related theory. You need to, looking at shop time, can you squeeze some things out here? You can't squeeze any more time out of it. Our kids here are really, they're really pushed into a box for those 90 days to get through a whole curriculum in 180. It's not easy. It's just not. So again, we'll make headways. We'll make adjustments as need be. The push-in is a big thing, as Superintendent Brennan said. If we can get students in their own elements, it's even better. And again, coming together collegial for our conversation with staff is even another way that we're looking at this to make it happen. So.
And that's where adding a para helps. It's hard to push in to a classroom if they're offered at the same time with one teacher, but if we have a para now, we can, second period, we can have 2 push-ins rather than just 1. So,
John?
I wanted to be able to keep up with things. A level 1 student? What is a level 1 student?
oh, sorry, so it's ranked level 1 through level 4. Level 1, they have the least understanding of the English language. So, you know, the most,
Like someone off the boat, so to speak.
the newest arrival. Yeah, least amount of comprehension of the English language. And then the whole idea of English language acquisition is we move them to 2, to 3, to 4, transition out, and then they're, you know, formally.
Do we have primarily one language? No, do we have like Chinese students or? Is it
No, but I mean, the number 1 would be I think Spanish, don't hold me to it, but yeah, that would be our.
But there is a variety, there's more than one to do.
Yeah. So, but we don't have level one type, level one students, so, 3s and 4s. So the less amount of time, level one will be really difficult to achieve, you know, the amount of time required to get them to level 2 and 3 and 4 and stuff, so.
And, excuse me, through the chair, most of our students are coming here who have been placed in EL programs in other schools have made it through the first 2 levels and working their way through. So they're not coming here directly from another country. They're not coming here directly from, you know, a brand new place. They're not going to be a level 1 student.
I just want to follow up what Mr. Scobie had mentioned about taking the kids out of shop time, and please, I think it's so important because I saw it too. The kids didn't want to leave shop. They weren't getting anything out of the pull-out math or whatever they were going to because they were losing shop time. So hopefully, last course of action, that would be where you're taking the kids from. Thank you.
And one more, if I may, through the chair. John, to your point, in regards to adding an additional math for somebody who's already math phobic, it's like going to the dentist without getting Novocaine. It's the last thing that they want. So we have to look at how we're teaching kids and what we're doing, how we're engaging kids with their learning. And once we do that and start looking at our practices, I think the overall turn of events for student learning starts to show itself. So it's a very interesting puzzle.
2 questions.
Sure.
So the first one, what's the definition of chronic absenteeism? What threshold do you have to meet to hit chronic absenteeism?
10%.
10%. And the reason I asked that question is some of the numbers are kind of eye-popping when we look down there, so that sounds like a concern. The other question I have is, if I understood correctly, there's about just under $500,000, $500,000 allocated towards SOA, towards the plan. Is that over the course of the 3 years, or is that?
So the numbers I gave were 3-year total.
3-year total.
3-year total.
Okay.
So if you break those down, you know, divide by 3 in each one of those categories, that's an annual expense.
Okay. And so that's a lot of money. What is the frequency of measuring success towards the gauges during the course of that 3 years? So you've got areas you want to hit, success points you want to hit, the 3%, 10%. How often?
Annually.
It's just once a year.
Annually, yeah. Yep. So,
Okay.
yeah, the measurements, MCAS, and the data that the state pulls together, the heat chart above, all comes out annually. And there'll be, my understanding is, for every district, there'll be a dashboard that you can go on the state site and see how we're doing.
And is that our only means of measurement? And the reason I'm asking is because when you measure something only one time a year, it's, in my opinion, it's tough to gauge success.
So according to those metrics, that's there, but the formative and the use of iReady and iExcel will all be our internal measurements to gauge how we're doing towards the end of the year. So with the common assessments that we put in place, we'll have those measurements in our own attendance annually. We map, we don't wait till 10% is hit and then say, oh, you're chronically absent. So our student support is measuring the attendance of all the students, and they have benchmarks when they hit this. We communicate with the parents or the caregivers and send out letters. And that's what we do with our care programs that we have in place. So the breaks, that's how we target students to, you know, encourage them to attend February care program, or if they missed that, or if they did attend that and they still need room, well, maybe you should attend April. And it's not just the student, we communicate with the caregivers too. And we get as detailed as our nursing staff is logging the minutes that students are there. So the students are here in school, but then when they find out that they've, for 500 minutes, have been in the nurse's office, it's like, are you really here if you're down there laying down because you have a headache or you have an upset stomach? So even that is considered, by our standards, absenteeism because you're not in class. So there's a lot of internal measurements, but per the state and towards the SOA, that's the metrics, the dashboards that we measure there. You can log in and see where they're at.
Any other questions on the SOA?
I have a question.
Jesse?
Is there a bilingual teacher here? They
So,
have
our-
a bilingual teacher here?
Our L instructor is bilingual.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's Spanish?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
so if if a student came here that didn't speak the language and was not Spanish, how would you use like interpreter services? Like how would you,
we would, yeah. so-
or would
sorry,
you,
I didn't mean to
would
interrupt
you, no, would you do it through like a computer translator, or would you, to like talk to that student, or would you have to get somebody to come in? I just don't know how that works here.
So there's a SEI, all our teachers are SEI endorsed, so
Okay.
they know how, to break down the language. In terms of speaking with the parents, that, yes, we would have a interpreter. In terms of all our documents that go out, it'll be right in iPass, it'll tell us the predominant language in the home. So our documents would be translated into Twi or Portuguese or Spanish or whatever the language that's predominant in the home. If we were to have a parent meeting, right, we would have the interpreter online, and do that.
George, did I see your hand up?
Yes, through the chair, I was just following up on your inquiry. When we're talking about measuring those gains or lack thereof, could we, and using, I think the site that you said was formative, using that data avenue, could we get reports maybe at the mid-year point of the year, or even quarterly, just a printout and quick once-over of that to see what the gains are? And I'm just throwing that out there, the quarter or half-year mark, whatever the committee's will is.
I'll look into it, Georgia, I'm not familiar with formative, and it's on, the table for use next year, so we'll look at it. Dr. McGuane will know off the top of her head, she's used it before, but we'll see what we can generate for the reports and the timeframes from them. Quarterly, I don't know, because usually it's a midterm and a final, but yeah, mid-year and this and that, we can see, absolutely.
Very nice.
Any other questions? All right, thank you for that.
Should I read that? I didn't read it, right? The superintendent director, the pupil personnel services director, the principal, and the curriculum director recommend the school committee vote to approve the proposed SOA plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion from Ben, second from Peter. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next presentation we have is the strategic plan update. Mr. Packard.
I'll tee it up to.
Oh, you're gonna tee it up,
I'll
okay.
tee it up for Mr. Packard, and thank you for giving my voice a break. So the SOA is for specific groups, and our strategic plan is for all our students. So the SOA is a great springboard of a lot of the work we did, where they always say, if you address the lowest performer, you're taking care of all the students in that class, if you're breaking it down, making it accessible on that. So a lot of the work that we use will translate into our strategic plan, and Ms. Packard has a lot of great information he can share out. Sure.
Absolutely. Through the chair, we're really excited about what Saturday's going to bring to the table. It's going to bring us an opportunity to accommodate a roadmap for success for the next 3 years, 2024, 2027. There are 6 key identifying areas that we're looking at academic excellence, vocational excellence, student faculty support and engagement, investing in infrastructure and technology for learning, facilities and athletics and activities, and building a bridge to the adult education component of BayPath, which is vitally important as they continue through the high school years. Presently, we have 51 individuals signed up for this committee, a wide variety. We've sent out several surveys, several attempts to have people sign up for us, through the student body, through the community, through the staff. We're happy, the advisors as well. We actually sent that out to them. We're trying to get a few representation, school committee. So we're going to have a real plethora of individuals with different ideas coming together to talk about what's good for our students. So we have 2 full-day sessions scheduled. You can see inside the release that we put out. We also have some subcommittee stuff that we're going to do via Zoom. So on Saturday, we're going to be looking to get right to work. We'll do a quick kickoff of what a strategic plan is all about and why we come together to do this. And from there, we're going to break right off into our 6 subgroups. We're going to begin talking about how Bay Path is going to be able to migrate forward. We will be sending out a survey to all extraneous individuals who are not part of the process to get some feedback on all 6 areas, so we can have some talking points prior to starting our discussion. It'll be organized, it'll be fun, and we're putting together a map that's just going to be able to guide us to where the next level is going to be. So, any direct questions on the plan?
We have representation, sorry.
We do?
Chair, we have representation.
Yep.
Yeah, I think 3 school committee
We've got
members.
3 school committee members right now that are signed up, which is nice. We appreciate that. And we've got parents, we have business leaders, we've got people in the community, we've got students, we've got
Teachers.
Teachers, yeah. It's an opportunity to really collaborate and come together. And as it starts to unfold, we'll share out with the committee and what's happening and what it looks like. And then we'll have that final draft ready for approval sometime for the June school committee. That's what our goal is. That'll drive our school improvement plan, and everything will be in place for the next 3 years on, from a collective responsibility mindset, and we'll be ready to roll. Looking forward to it.
What's the duration of the plan? Is it a 5-year plan or?
It's a 3-year plan.
3-year.
2024 to 2027.
27. right.
Most districts have a 3 to 5 year plan in place, and this is a good opportunity now to, I think the last one I saw here at Bay Path was 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
It started or ended?
It ended in 2018,
Okay.
pre-COVID, so it's an opportunity for us to get back on track in our evolution, planning together.
And do you have a sense, I'm assuming you looked at the 2018, the one that ended in kind of, were there things taken from that actually got enacted?
Things have changed since COVID. They've changed drastically, not the least of which is recalibrating students' learning and what that looks like. That's one of our biggest issues. In education, I think the big pillars never change. We start looking at instructional methodology, we're looking at assessment, we're looking at curriculum, we're looking at best practices, we're looking at our facilities, we're looking at our athletics, we're looking at our clubs, our activities. All those things are consistent in most schools. So I would say they're pretty much pillars.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I asked that question is, it's great, it's fantastic, I think, that we've got 51 people willing to be engaged in the effort and devote their personal time towards the effort. So the last thing I would ever want to see is it be shelved and not looked at for 3 years. So that's my biggest fear of any time we have a plan that time and energy is put into, that it actually gets utilized. If hopefully the feedback and the input rises to that level where we can actually use it and get some good out of it.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, once the strategic plan is set, that is the basis for our school improvement plan on the annual basis. So each year we look at that, and it's not something to be shelved. And again, sharing the excitement that we can map the future and have a clear direction of where we want to go with the input from the stakeholders and stuff. So yeah, no, it definitely won't be shelved.
Living, breathing document.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
for kids. Yeah, it's really exciting. It really is.
Any other questions? Who are our 3 school committee members? I think I heard Jeff was one, right?
Yeah. Ben and Jim signed up.
Jim, all right. Well, thank you to you 3.
Sorry, through the chair.
I did too.
And Mary?
Yeah, they're in did you get the email? If you didn't, I can forward it to you.
Mrs. Packard.
Yeah.
Mary Johnson.
Oh, Mary?
I signed up through Google Forms.
Did you really? Okay, yep.
All right.
I didn't look at it today personally, but I will look, but thank you.
Yeah. All right, 4.
Thank you to the 4 of you.
You'll all receive an email from me on Thursday. Give me a breakdown of what's going to happen, so we'll lay it out.
Okay, I'll just wait for that.
Yep,
Okay.
no worries.
All right, there's no other questions on the strategic plan update. We'll go to item B, the admission policy.
Through the chair, the policy subcommittee and the superintendent director recommend the school committee vote to revise the JF admission policy as follows. Remove the first reference to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, subsection 37, H and 3/4, and replace with Mass General Law, Chapter 71, subsection 37H in both Section 6, Paragraph 4A, and Section 7, Paragraph C.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, Don seconded that. Any questions or comments? Only comment is that the policy subcommittee did recommend favorably on this. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Surplus equipment. First up, we have plant maintenance surplus equipment.
Through the chair, superintendent, director, and the school business manager recommend the school committee vote to place one Ford 445 tractor with loader and backhoe, one Fisher plow minute mount, one Clark fork truck, one cement mixer, gas, one bandsaw, roll-in saw, and one wide commercial back SSS of little to no value on the surplus equipment list to be disposed of according to the school committee surplus equipment policy, using the most appropriate method.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I have just a quick question. When we say, how do we dispose of that?
So, through the chair, those
Is that-
items are all loaded up and ready to be advertised on gov.com,
Is that how that works?
right? Did I get it? Gov.com?
No, Gov Deals,
Gov deal.
G-O-D, short for government, deals as in you'll get a great deal on something, .com.
So if you go on that site, you can search it, and then if you're interested in the 445 backhoe loader, put in a bid.
Oh, wow, look at that.
I just want to make a suggestion. If you go to the site, the easiest way to search is by location.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so skip all the different categories, just say by location, type in 01507, and the first listing will be Baypath, and it will tell you that there are 18 items available.
That's it. I just was curious what we do. If we just scrap it or what? That's really what I was curious about. Thank you.
I'm not gonna bid.
Thanks, Jeff.
But,
All right. Sorry.
Can I do an abstain on that vote for the surplus equipment? Because I'm gonna be going on the Dublin, so,
You gonna buy the backhoe?
yeah.
We can note that. What's that? Yeah. All right, next item, also under surplus equipment, we have advanced manufacturing and electrical.
Through the chair, the superintendent, director, the vocational director, and the school business manager recommend the school committee vote to place one Micro Heights 600 and several books of little to no value on the surplus equipment list to be disposed of according to the school committee surplus equipment policy using the most appropriate method available.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries. Item D, approval of 2024-25 student handbook changes.
Through the chair, superintendent, director, and the dean of students recommend the school committee vote to approve the proposed student handbook changes for the 24-25 school year as presented, and Mr. Packard can talk about those changes.
I'd be happy to. First, I'd like to thank Dean of Students Dan McGowan and his handbook committee for putting time into reviewing the handbook each and every year. Just like a strategic plan, a handbook does need to evolve, language needs to be looked at. We need to be looking at procedures we have in place to make sure we're meeting the needs of all of our students. In addition to any changes that you may have seen in your packet tonight, you would also, it's good to know that we survey the staff. We ask them to look at it, even if they're not involved with the committee, just so they can provide feedback for the committee to actually use. Not only the staff, we also survey the parents. Parents and caregivers, because if there's something in there that isn't just jiving right by somebody, we want to make sure we're looking at that with a fine-tooth comb. So all that information is brought back to the committee, and they came up with their proposed changes for 24-25. There were 6 in general that we're looking at. I think there's a long form in your packet, but there's also an abbreviated format that I'll just review with you today. The first thing we're looking at is the schedule of the school day, which is moving everything up 10 minutes according to the new contract that is available for next year. The second one, we looked at our absenteeism and school attendance and how we roll out the communication with parents. When a student reaches 7 absences, there'll be a letter of concern. When a student reaches 13 absences, there'll be a letter of warning. When a student reaches 18 absences, there'll be a critical status letter that will be provided to the student and the family, which will require a meeting with the family and start talking about credit restoration. And if a student has 10 consecutive days, they'll receive a 10-day drop letter from Mrs. Coleman. And then it allows us to have communication with the family about what we need to do to ensure to get that child back on track. These types of aggressive communication tactics will work really well. That way we don't let things slide. We make sure we're head on with what we have to do and find out what the issues are. And we work with the students and the families. In addition to that, the electronics policy. We still struggle with electronics in school. I think every school across the Commonwealth and across the country can probably talk about cell phones and how they sometimes are a deterrent to learning. This year, we did start off with putting a sheet in every room, which had 30 pockets for cell phones. We started off really, really good with that, which is really well. And unfortunately, it's kind of fallen by the wayside lately. It's very hard. The teachers are starting to teach, and the kids sometimes don't put their stuff in there where they're supposed to, and it becomes hard to track. So I know that as a principal, I can do a better job with that. And Dean of Students, we're talking about what that looks like, and I know moving forward, we're really going to work on targeting why that's important. The kids have done a very nice job of putting their cell phones away and powering them off. It's not like they have them on during class, but you can get quantifiable data that will suggest that cell phones will deter the actual teaching that's going on. So we want that language to really clearly state that the cell phone's powered off, put it where they're supposed to be when they walk into a shop and or an academic classroom area. And that's just revisiting the writing on how this looks. So what it says specifically, electronic devices are expected to be stored in the proper storage area provided by the teacher for each class upon arrival into class. The device may be gathered at the conclusion of the class when the instructor deems it's appropriate. So very simple language, and we want to make sure it adheres to exactly what we're looking for. The third, we have dress code. And this has been a bone of contention as well. I know that I came before the committee not too long ago about hats. Hats are something that's happening across the Commonwealth and happening in a lot of schools. But we want to clear up the wording that we are not, the wording is going to, we'd like to say, hoods of any kind are prohibited in schools. Now, hoods cover the entire face. They don't allow us to see what child we're dealing with, but it takes away the wording of the hats. And we're asking for an understanding that there's no quantitative information that we could utilize that would say it prohibits learning for any individual student if they do wear a hat in class. It doesn't. As long as you're not wearing a sombrero in the front row, the people behind you trying to understand what the teacher is talking about. If you come into school, you'll see these kids every day. It's a constant battle. But I can tell you, working in another district, they acquiesced after COVID, and they allowed hats to be worn. Okay. It's just a battle that's very, very hard to fight. But we also want to be cognizant, jackets, personal backpacks, blankets, gym bags, all types of other materials need to be stored in lockers upon arrival to school. So the only wording that would change is we just remove hats, that the hats aren't allowed. We really focus on making sure that the students do not have a hat when they come into the building, so we can identify them at all times. The other one that I have here before I hand it over to Vocational Director Tripp is the business and technology shop and marketing shop have become one. They've officially merged, and I want to thank the teachers, Mrs. Spears and Mrs. Peters and Bonnie as well for working together to make that work. They want to call the new shop BEAM. That's going to be Business, Entrepreneurship, and Marketing. It's exciting, it's new, it's an opportunity to blend two curriculums together, and it's a great shot. We call it the shot of B12 in the arm for a program that just wanted, that needed to be able to beat that uplift. So they've done a really, really good job with that. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to turn it over to the Vocational Director Tripp and just talk a little bit about the fine work that was done with the exploratory rubric. We were looking at making sure that we shored up how the freshman exploratory process was going to take place, and Mr. Tripp has been right knee-deep in the middle of all of it.
Sure. So I can't take all the credit for this. We had about 12 instructors meet over the course of, I want to say, 6 or 7 meetings. So what we did was we took examples from other schools, other vocational schools, took feedback from other instructors in the building, parents, and students. Essentially what we did was kind of clean up the freshman exploratory process in the rubric in preparation for next year, removing the scheduling point and actually breaking it down. So if you look at proposed breakdown to workmanship, safety, competency, in the actual shop, employability, and attendance. That aligns almost directly with the frameworks set forth by DESE. In terms of placement into the shops, removing the scheduling point will help us, hopefully, explain to parents why their student got this grade. In terms of scheduling points, we weren't able to do that necessarily, so it's just cleaning up the communications, cleaning up the wording. Is there any questions there?
Motion to approve? Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I
Don?
do have a question. And I think Mr. Packard brought this up, and I'm not part of the policy committee, but it was brought up at the policy committee last month about the hats. And I believe at the time, the motion was defeated because I think it was, so I'm not sure if the motion was defeated by the policy committee, why it would be just accepted and put into the new student handbook.
So, through the chair, the motion at that time was to implement it immediately for the rest of the year. But I think it was talked about that it would move forward with a recommendation for next year to remove it. So at that time, you know, if it wasn't relayed in that manner, we were looking to implement that immediately so we didn't have to fight for the rest of the year about removing a hat and this and that. But I'm looking at Ms. Packard, right?
No, you're absolutely 100% correct.
And it was defeated to do a not mid-year, but, you know, in-year change. But it was that we would be back in the handbook that was going to be addressed.
Okay, I didn't hear that it was supposed to be just for the year.
But there's nothing precludes the school committee for, you know, making a motion to accept it and amend that.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't want to beat that one, but I guess what concerns me is I understand that it's difficult to have a policy that's difficult to enforce. I get that. But I guess if we're taking it from the standpoint of trying to prepare our students for the workforce, and I get that certain shops that we teach, it's accepted. You know, you can go out to a construction site and wear a hat if you don't have a hard hat on. I get that. But we have other shops where it's more of a office type environment where that is not acceptable. And if we're in the business of trying to prepare our students for that workforce, are we doing them justice by lightening up because it's a hard battle to fight on something like this? I guess that's a concern I have.
So, through the chair, the shops prepare the students for the workforce, and part of that is talking about appropriate dress and appropriate actions in the workplace. So, you know, they still have that right. We're not removing that right for them to implement what their shop uniform is on that. So, you know, and yeah, my previous district, you know, they wear shop uniforms that were different, and then during the academic, they can wear what they want. So there is the, you know, closed-toed shoes, no piercings, no fake nails. So, I mean, name the shop, there are different requirements for that. So we're not looking to interfere with that, but during the academic week is on that. And again, the number of schools that have acquiesced to headwear, with the exception of hoods, you know, almost entirely the exception of hoods, they're, you know, they're changing their policies to allow the headwear on it.
They're giving up. You know, it's in a way they're kind of giving up on it. It's kind of fascinating to me. You would think there'd be a security risk with that would be going in the other direction.
Security risks are the hoods. The hoods obscure too much. When you're doing videos, and again, videos are always reactive, they're not preventative, but the hat, there's still the ability to see the face and different contours of that.
Well,
Yeah, like, I would personally, I don't know, the rest of the committee, I don't want to beat this up either, but I would like to amend it to see, go back to the policy. So we did discuss this. And it was voted down. So just to have additional discussion.
So is that a formal amendment, Bob?
Yes.
A motion to amend the motion?
To bring it back to policy to discuss on hats.
And is your, okay, so your motion is an amendment specific to item number 4 within the handbook changes?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that.
So there's a motion and a second to amend the motion on the floor to send item 4 back to policy subcommittee. Any questions or comments?
I'll make a comment through the chair. I think that by allowing hats and head coverings, we're being culturally appropriate. I think looking at the way our world is now and the various degrees of different cultures that we have within a school, some cultures have headgear and hats that are native to their countries that they can wear, and I think that's appropriate that we see that within our handbook. And I think by taking that away and just saying hoods, I think that gives them the opportunity to wear what is culturally appropriate to them.
I'd like to make a comment. I mean, welding class, they wear beanies. I mean, that's a hat, if you really want to be technical, right? I mean, you can't wear welding protection on your head. I mean, that's technically a hat. I don't know where you draw the line here. It's got to be discretionary. It has to be.
When I made my comments, I referenced shops in particular, just from a preparation standpoint, but this extends into the classroom too. I don't see a need for a beanie in a classroom.
I'm actually agreeing with you, but.
So are we talking about baseball hats, hats in general, or just anything on your head? I mean, I'm thinking baseball hats that you're talking about. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't know.
So it does vary. I mean, predominantly there's baseball hats, but I mean, my previous district, it was due to primarily cultural appropriation on that and being, open to all of that. Head covering is a head covering. So it could be, it could be yarmulke, it could be a baseball hat, it could be a scarf, it could be a do-rag. Culturally, a lot of schools have changed for that. It sets us up to be ready for that and not have to amend again going forward. I don't see it as a giving up. And again, in the shops, appropriate dress is appropriate dress. Appropriate speech, appropriate communication, that's taught in all the shops depending on what it is. And again, so we talked about the welding caps, and we talked about you have to have a baseball hat in culinary. It's a hair net, it replaces the hair net. What in a business shop is not appropriate, where khakis and dress shirt is required in the shop. During the academic week, it's free for all as long as everything's covered up and midriffs aren't shown and it's not, inappropriate wear. But, so there is a difference between the academic week and the shop week. And our shops do a great job of preparing students for the workplace, and that's evidenced by our placement rates and our co-op rates. But, that's where the education comes in. You're going on an interview, I wouldn't wear your baseball hat with a fishing hook, and when you go to the job site, that feedback comes back. Like, we told him 3 times not to wear his hat. Then he's like, all right, well, the first mistake is you should have told us after the second time, so that we could have addressed it with you. So those remain in place. It is it doesn't impact student learning. From our student advisory to the superintendent and the principal, they brought up a lot of good reasons around wearing a hat. Socially, You know, it takes a lot of stress off them if they can throw a hat on because they're having a bad hair day. So it does address a lot. And then one more is medically, we have students with alopecia who are much more comfortable wearing a hat. And then it takes away from that in the hallways, like, start taking your hat off. And it's like, so it presents an awkward situation that can lead to a social emotional crisis for that student. Now we're impacting student learning because we've taken them out of the play of that, and now they've got to go to the guidance counselor. Those are some of the things that we've all talked about. Yeah, I'm old school. You take the hat off. You walk in the house, your hat off. Just at the table, we'll slap it off. But, so it's not a giving up. It's more of a changing. And culturally, yeah, Mary's in a school. I mean, that's happening in alopecia and that type of stuff. Those are real now. So.
That's where I was going, was the medical. I had obviously my child went through cancer. And she did, when she got back to school finally, she would not go in until I think it was the beginning of June without a snow hat on. Because she didn't feel comfortable. And again, I'm old school too, take your hat off. And smack it off at the table, absolutely. My old man wouldn't have tolerated it 3 minutes. But again, we have to change with the times. And the bad hair day, again, we got chronic absenteeism. What we're trying to do is get these kids back into school. And COVID has really changed the whole mentality of getting kids to get up to get to school. I see it with employees. I mean, just the evolution of the kids I'm hiring today. You know, I hired a kid today, showed up in a hat, backwards. But it was a living, breathing person coming through the door willing to work next Monday. Hired.
Showed up on time.
Exactly. And I mean, I had a kid last week. Meet him at 7 a.m. He showed up at 11. So, again, he had no hat on. He has no job. So again, I get it. It's hard to get our head around it because we all went to school and the hat came off when you're in the schools. But
I'm trying to remember when I went to high school. I think it wore a hat.
But I'll just throw it to Jeff and then Bob.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of hot debate on this, really amazing, this is the item of the night, but I think we should send it back to the committee for them to take a closer look at this. Obviously, if there's this much discussion about it, and they can hash it out. I mean, I personally, I'm not a fan of hats in the building, but I think times have changed. I see the way people are dressed on Zoom calls and team meetings. So, I think things have changed. But I think you should go back to committees and take a closer look at it.
Yeah, Joe, I just think, because we just talked about this, was the last one?
Yeah, I think it was last month.
I don't recall it, maybe I misunderstood, I don't recall it was just for a temporary.
It did, I just went back to look at it.
Did it say that?
It did say for this
immediate?
2023, 24.
So I kind of feel like I'm being like an end run here, but I do feel, I hear everybody's concerns and everything, but I do think it belongs back in policy. And then policy should discuss it, vote on it, bring it back to the committee. Because it was brought to policy for an immediate. That's just my thought.
Okay. So again, we have a motion for an amendment on the floor, and that's what the debate is about right now. And is there any other conversation or questions, comments about the amendment that's on the floor? And the amendment is to...
I'm gonna vote against the amendment. I do appreciate the concerns. I think as Mr. Mount, I mean, this is 2024. We see hats. We see hats. We have a presidential candidate that goes around campaigning with a hat, and that's good enough for me.
Any other comments? No?
My opinion is I'm totally in favor of no hoods in the school. As far as a hat, that's an individual's privilege and respect. I wear a hat. Everybody sees me wear a veteran hat in respect for my Vietnam veterans that got killed. And I'll never take it off for anyone. And I wear it all the time. I have other people that have their sons that wear their father's hat because of respect for him when he passed on. So having that as a privilege, but seeing that this committee would think to take that away from each and every individual student, I totally am against it.
Thanks, sir. George, did I see your hand, or?
Yeah, you did. Through the chair, I would also be in favor of kicking it back to the policy committee, and not because I'm on the policy committee or not because I'm against hats, just because it is the policy committee, and there was some misunderstanding as to what they were voting on when it was in the hands of the policy committee. I wasn't there for that meeting, and I have no issue with the hats. However, I think we'd be doing a disservice to that committee, pushing it forward, and there's obviously some discussion to be had. And again, that's not to say that I wouldn't be pushing back against those who want to push it back to that committee, because I may be on the opposite side of their opinion, but just as a point of principle, I just think it starts with the policy committee. And then secondly, all of these items depend on the follow-through. Whether it's a blanket, a hood, a pillow, a stuffed animal, whatever it might be, it's all about the follow-through. I know we have a new team stepping in. It's about the follow-through. I'd be more curious as to what those consequences are going to be. How many verbal warnings are you going to get for dragging a sleeping bag behind you? I mean, these are my issues. It's the follow-through. So that being said, that's my opinion.
Thanks, George. Jim, and then John.
Move to question.
Move the question? Okay. So we'll do a roll call, because I have a feeling we're going to have a split vote here, so I want to make sure we get it right. I'll just run through the list. Mr. Beelin?
Yep, that's yes for the amendment?
No.
Okay, so just for clarification, a yes vote is in favor of the amendment, which is to put it back to policy, and a no vote is against the amendment, which will keep it in the original motion to pass the handbook changes. So based on your comments, I heard you say you're a no vote, Al, based on your prior comments.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Caldwell?
No.
Ms. Gausha?
Yes.
Mr. Gillette?
No.
Mr. Grenny is absent. Ms. Johnson?
No.
Mr. LaMountain?
No.
Ms. Lente?
Yes.
Mr. Montville?
Yes.
Ms. Pantos?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Kowalski?
I'm gonna, I'll just abstain on that vote. I haven't made up my mind yet. There's a lot of good points on both sides.
Mr. Peter Shaw?
No.
Mr. Timothy Shaw?
No.
Mr. Scobie?
Yes.
Mr. Taveri?
Yes.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yes.
Mr. Wetzel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and I will do some quick math.
Oh, the suspense. Over ahead.
You double checking, so you, oh, okay. So of the members that are here this evening, the yeses were 46.57 to the noes 30.95, so the amendment carries. So now we're moving on to the original motion as amended, which is to accept the proposed changes with the amendment of moving the dress code piece back to policy subcommittee. So that is the motion that's on the table now. Are there any other questions or comments?
The dress code portion, yes.
John?
Question. If we move to put it back to the policy committee?
That's already been voted, John. That piece has already been voted.
Oh, it has? It is going back?
Yes.
Can we, excuse me, not suspend, but can we take a break from this meeting and have policy committee straighten it out tonight real quick and then come back? So we finish this business?
My opinion, and in policy, I'll let Mr. Shaw jump in, but I'm going to tempted to say no. And I'm thinking that the length of that conversation we might want to allow the committee the necessary time to have the conversation they want to have.
Yeah, wouldn't we have to post the meeting?
Plus, we gotta post it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to post it, and we'd already adjourned policy earlier tonight, so that's a moot point.
Yeah, we want to violate the open meeting.
No.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as amended?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, one opposition. Motion carries. All right, next item is item E, approval of the outside project for Charlton Animal Shelter.
Through the chair, the superintendent director and the vocational director recommend the school committee vote to approve the outside project of a 37-foot by 8-foot cement pad for the Charlton Animal Shelter as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second. Any questions or comments?
Moving quick, this one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, approval of high school assistant principal, human resources specialist, and athletic trainer job descriptions.
Through the chair, the superintendent director and the principal recommend the school committee vote to approve the proposed high school assistant principal, human resources specialist, and athletic trainer, job descriptions as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Don?
Has the human resource specialist been hired, or do we already have one?
No.
Okay, so is that going to be hired for next September, or?
We'd love to advertise it and get them on board as soon as possible. If we can get them in this year to put in some policies, or not policies, some practices for the start of next school year, that's our hope.
But thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, approval of participation in Skills USA State Leadership and Skills Conference.
Through the chair, the superintendent director, the vocational director, and the school business manager recommend the school committee vote to approve our participation in the Skills USA State Leadership and Skills Conference to be held at the Best Western Royal Plaza Trade Center in Marlborough, Massachusetts from April 25th through April 27th, 2024 for 2 advisors, 8 chaperones, 60 high school students, and 7 post-secondary practical nursing students for a cost of approximately $37,430 for high school students to be paid out of account number 53, Skills USA, and approximately $3,770 for practical nursing program to be paid out of account number 12334, PN student skills expense.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, approval of out-of-state field trip for culinary arts.
Through the chair, the superintendent director, vocational director, and principal recommend the school committee vote to approve the culinary arts out-of-state field trip to Newport Classic Cruises in Brick Alley Pub located in Newport, Rhode Island on March 20th, 2024 for 2 instructor chaperones and 23 students.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Question, John?
Did he just say March 20th, 2024?
Oh, yeah. No, that's all right.
Good call out.
April, yeah, April. Sorry. No, I take it back.
May.
May 20th. The M was right, the rest was May, sorry.
Thanks, John, for calling that one out.
May 20th.
I'm assuming that's a good friendly amendment worked into the motion in the second? Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Don.
I'm gonna call on this school committee, all the people that were here for quite a while. I mentioned this to Superintendent Brennan prior to the meeting. At one time, I thought that the school committee was not requiring their approval for out-of-state field trips. And the reason I bring that up is because many of our kids have gone across the line to Connecticut and on field trips and so forth. And I don't recall having to go to the school committee for approval for those outside state field trips. Overnight, yes. But I thought that they had rescinded that, and I did look at the policy today, and it clearly does say that it's out of state and overnight has to get school committee approval. But I don't remember getting, at one point, the vocational director does approve them before it goes to the principal, and I don't recall ever denying one because it had to go to the school committee or holding one up because it had to go to the school committee. And again, Superintendent Brenner, he wasn't here at the time, but many of you were here. And I was wondering if any of you recall that discussion or that change to the policy.
So our written policy, if I heard you right, is just out of state and overnight, not just out of state. Is that what you said?
The original policy, well, as it's stated right now, it says overnight and out of state. But I thought it was just overnight. I thought it had changed. The overnight ones had to be approved by the school committee, whereas out of state ones did not have to be approved. And again, if you're going to Connecticut, you're coming back that probably the next day. If you go into New York and you have to stay, then obviously it would have to be approved by the school committee because it's an overnight. But I think somehow, we'll let it go for now. And I just think it's something to look into because, just because they're going to Connecticut, is there a reason why we have to approve them going to Connecticut as opposed to going to Boston or Springfield?
I guess what I'm getting hung up on is the and or the or.
Well, it says the and in the policy.
Okay, so both need to be approved now per the policy.
Yes.
So it sounds to me like it's.
When you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so.
But what I'm saying is I don't know.
Do we really need it?
Do we need it?
Right.
No, I don't think we need it.
And this sounds like a good thing to be adding to our policy review when the time comes. Okay. All right, we'll go back to the vote. Sorry about that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, I think that covers new business, if I didn't miss anything. Information and proposals, report from the superintendent director.
Through the chair, I submitted a written report. If there's any questions, I'm prepared to answer them. Just call out a couple of key items. The FinCom meetings progressed. The only other one that's on the calendar as of now is Auburn, and that's this Wednesday night. I do want to call attention to the two superintendent scholars that were recognized on March 21st, Meredith Clark and Dylan DeJesus. Meredith Clark is a senior in the animal science program, and Dylan DeJesus is a senior in the computer-aided design and drafting. So if you haven't read it, they're very accomplished students. I would encourage you to check that out. That's great. District skills was mentioned earlier by Kirsten, as well as approving the states. This is the first year in 20 years that we had a 100% participation rate among the registered. So everyone who signed up for the districts showed up and took the test. Over 180 students took the test, went off without a hitch. It was great. The numbers, check out the awards. We list each individual. We had 45 medalists, 35 qualified for states, so that's great. Among our high school students and our post-secondary, there were 9 medalists and all 9 qualified to go on to states on that. So congratulations to everybody involved, especially our advisors on that, who did a wonderful job. At the MAVA General Membership Meeting in Marlboro on March 14th. He just keeps racking up the awards. Don Erickson was presented a plaque in recognition and appreciation of his many years of service to MAVA, the Mass Vocational Association, now known as Mass CTE, the MASC Division 8, and to VETA. So that was a great recognition. Football students received their rings in a great ceremony banquet. Our ELA MCAS went off last week with our new 300 Chromebooks, and there was no issue with that. So huge shout out to our specialists, our teachers who proctored the exam, and as well as our IT who got those devices in and up to speed in record time. Over 297 students. The makeups are happening this week on that. Wednesday night is the spring advisory. I encourage you all to attend. Strategic planning kicks off Saturday, April 10th. We have our health tech pinning ceremony here at 6 o'clock in the cafeteria. 20 students will receive their certified nursing aid pin, and 9 will receive their EKG tech pins on that. 2024 career fair, it's worth mentioning, April 11th from 1 o'clock to 2:30 in our gym. We have over 34 local businesses scheduled to participate in the career fair for our students, and over 100 students registered to come in and check out our career fair. We are continuing our CARE program for April, and we're contacting parents on that. And on Wednesday, April 24th, our CTI, Career Technical Institute, is having their first graduation of the first cohort. So we're looking forward to a wonderful evening for graduation. 6 o'clock in our lecture hall. 10 students from Culinary Arts will receive their certificates. 9 students from HVAC will receive their certificates, and 5 students from Advanced Manufacturing will receive their certificates.
Any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Audit Subcommittee.
On the report.
Budget Subcommittee.
So I understand we've had 5 completed, they've got town finance committee.
6, right?
We have 1, I think we had 5 according to the report. 1 scheduled Wednesday for Harper.
Oh, yeah.
And then
All right,
we
you're
have
right, yeah.
4 that have not been scheduled.
Yes.
Is that what the NA not available?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
so, correct, Dudley hasn't scheduled theirs, North Brookfield, Southbridge, and Webster.
Given the deadline.
No.
It's kind of.
Good luck.
All right, has there been any negative feedback from the 4 that have been scheduled?
No, through the chair, there hasn't. Matter of fact, it's well received. Our budget is well received. Our presentation is well received on that. There's good questions. Both has answered everything, and everything's been well received to date.
Okay. Building and Grounds Subcommittee.
Kyle, can you summarize? You got a letter from the company that had given us a proposal for the
Solar field.
solar field.
Right.
Thank
So,
you.
through the chair, I'll provide an update. We reached out to the company that submitted the successful bid back in 2017 for the solar field. We provided them the schematics from our master athletic field update to include a baseball field and parking across where the solar field was going. Reached right out to Amoresco directly, took some doing. They got back to us. They were happy to update their proposal based on the new design configuration. Got back to me right away, and what they did look at is the incentives. They looked at the the net metering, and they said, and they wrote it back to me in a letter saying that by their calculations, it's not economically feasible to move forward with that project because We've lost over 40% of the incentives since 2017, and we're in a national grid area, so net metering is not an option on that, and they said that it's not in our best interest. It wouldn't return what we need to fund those fields on it. So I present with that. So it doesn't look economically feasible that a solar field of that magnitude would give us any benefit to use towards paying off new athletic fields.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Tom. Anything else, Don? No. Thank you. Negotiation subcommittee. David is not here, but I think is there anything on, just the next dates on Unit M?
Next meeting is April 9th.
Okay, and those conversations are ongoing? Okay. Policy subcommittee, Mr. Shaw?
We had met earlier before the regular school committee meeting and recommended the JF admission policy and moved it forward to the regular school meeting.
Thank you. And then the warrant subcommittee. Again, the warrants are circulating the table.
Is anybody here?
All right. Future business. Next, we have a public hearing on school choice, as well as a regular school committee meeting on May the 6th. Public hearing, will that be 6 or 6:30? You know, yeah, sure.
Last year it was at 7. I think it was just the beginning of the regular school committee meeting.
Okay, okay.
Because it's short.
Okay, so the hearing will start at 7 o'clock here on the 6th, followed by the regular meeting. Topics for future agendas. I think the only question I have is, I think it's about this time of year we want to start our conversation about evaluation for superintendent. You know, because I know that takes some time, making sure that all the members have the packets and then all the information be compiled, because I think our goal is to do feedback in June, because we don't have a July meeting. So I would just, perhaps we can have an agenda item to discuss the next steps and the due dates of when the members' feedbacks would be due by, so that we can target our June meeting for the actual feedback. Any other items, feel free to reach out to Cheryl or myself or the superintendent. Remarks from the superintendent director.
Sure, through the chair, a couple of remarks. The MAVO, Most Outstanding Vocational Education Student Banquet, takes place on April 11th at Mechanics Hall. This year's student is Daniel Dage, a senior student in advanced manufacturing. Daniel hails from North Brookfield, has received a full offer of employment from his co-op position and has received several acceptances to post-secondary schools for engineering, mechanical engineering, WPI, University of Lowell, RIT, I think that's it. And our school committee members from North Brookfield are attending that, along with the principal and the director. So it's a wonderful event to recognize the most outstanding vocational students from all the vocational schools throughout the state. I want to remind everybody that the Bay Path Education Golf Tournament is coming up on May 18th, so consider putting together a foursome and participating in a wonderful day. Hopefully no rain this year. On that, it's 1 p.m. at Heritage, $125 per person, and you can access that, sign up online. And congratulations, Kristen, on the win.
All right, thank you. We'll do our round table. Start with Mike.
Thank you.
I'll sit, thank you.
Good.
I'll sit.
All set, thank you.
I know we have a card that's going around for Al Reich. I did talk to him last week. He was a sick little boy for a number of weeks. He's starting to feel better. He just wanted to express his highly.
The card needs to go to Peter. The card needs to go to Peter.
Yeah,
Sorry about
I
that.
think the card is over here. Feel free to drop it up here, whoever ends up with it last, so we can get that off to him. John?
Any comments? No. Joy?
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
Al?
Good.
Peter?
I want to congratulate Don Erickson for his award, the skills program for a great job they've done. I do want to wish Al Reich quick recovery.
Thank you, Peter.
I just wanted to thank Kyle for a great tour of the school last week. I came in for midday session. We toured all the different programs. It was really terrific. Thanks for that. And just one other thing, in case anybody wants to know, 27 years ago, next month, Phil Collins released a single, Wear My Hat.
You had to go there, Jeff.
Just a cheap shot on the way out. I'm taking it away. That's true, 27.
Kirsten, any closing remarks? No? The only remark I have is that, just again, I want to congratulate I think there was 3 students noted tonight, Meredith, Dylan, and Daniel, so on their accomplishments and achievements. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion